The waitress quietly approached the VIP table where Klaus Adler sat with his assistant. He glanced at her once, then spoke in German. Certain someone poor like her wouldn't understand. This restaurant hires servers like this, Anna bent to take the order, and Klaus flicked the menu toward her with a sneer. Hope you can remember the dishes. Assistant burst out laughing. Wait, can she really handle this? Stay tuned to Thread Tales to find out. When she returned with the appetizer, Anna set it down and replied in flawless German. This is exactly the recipe you praised in Berlin, May last year. Klaus froze, his smile vanishing as nearby tables began to turn and look. Anna Moeller stood there, her hands steady as she poured water into their glasses. The restaurant was one of those places in New York where the chandeliers cast a warm glow. Soft jazz drifted through the air, and the tablecloths were so crisp they could have been ironed that morning. Her black server's uniform was a little worn at the cuffs, her brown hair tied back in a simple bun. No makeup, no earrings, just a plain silver watch, ticking quietly on her wrist. She didn't look like she belonged among the glittering crowd of business tycoons and socialites. And that's what people saw first, her plainness, her quiet way of moving. They assumed she was nobody, just another worker scraping by. But Anna had grown up in a world of power and privilege, raised in a family that owned half the skyline, taught to carry herself with discipline and grace. She didn't need to prove it, she just lived it. And tonight, in this room full of people who judged her by her clothes, she was about to show them who she was without saying a word. Can you guess what happens next? Keep watching Thread Tales for the jaw-dropping twist. Before we dive deeper, can you do me a quick favor? Grab your phone, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to Thread Tales. It means the world to share these stories with you, to know you're out there feeling this with me. All right, let's keep going. Klaus Adler leaned back. In his chair, his suit tailored so sharp it looked like it could cut through steel. He was a German billionaire, the kind of man who walked into a room and expected everyone to notice. His assistant, Hans, was a lean guy with a smirk that seemed glued to his face, his eyes always darting around like he was keeping score. Klaus didn't bother looking at Anna again. He muttered in German to Hans, his voice low but cutting.
Ow, she
Probably doesn't even understand us. Just get the food here fast so she doesn't waste my time. Hans snickered, his gaze sliding over Anna's uniform like it told her whole story. Anna didn't flinch. She set the menus down gently, her fingers brushing the table's edge. Yes, sir, she said, her voice soft, almost too polite. But her eyes caught the light for a split second, sharp and steady, before she turned and walked away. The restaurant was buzzing that night. Every table packed with people who moved money like it was a game. A woman in a red velvet dress at the next table leaned toward her date, her voice just loud enough. Is that waitress new? She looks like she wandered in from a diner. Her date, a guy with a watch that screamed money, chuckled without looking up from his phone. Anna moved past them, carrying a tray of martinis, her steps even, her balance perfect. She'd heard worse. Growing up, her parents had been strict. Her father, a titan in finance. Her mother, a diplomat who spoke 5 languages. They had taught her to hold her head high, to never let anyone see her break. So she didn't. She just kept moving, her face calm, her hands steady. But the air in the room was starting to feel heavy, like everyone was waiting for something to snap. As Anna cleared an empty glass from a nearby table, a man in a pinstriped suit, his tie loosened and his voice too loud, called out to her. He was a hedge fund broker, the kind who bragged about his deals before the ink was dry. Hey, sweetheart, he said, waving his hand like he was summoning a dog. You forgot the lemon twist in my drink. What? They don't teach you that in waitress school? The table around him erupted in laughter, their glasses clinking as they leaned back in their chairs. Anna paused, her hand still on the glass, and turned to face him. My apologies, she said, her voice even, her eyes locking onto his, for just a moment. She walked to the bar, returned with a perfectly sliced lemon twist, and placed it on his table with a small nod. The broker blinked, caught off guard by her calm, and muttered something under his breath as she walked away. The room kept watching, the tension coiling tighter. Klaus wasn't about to let it go. He called Anna back to the table, his voice louder now, like he wanted the whole place to hear. Let's see how good your memory is, he said in German, rattling off 3 dishes. So fast it was like he was trying to trip her up. Duck confit with a sauce nobody could pronounce. It's a grilled sea bass special and a pasta dish with a list of ingredients longer than his ego. Hans jumped in, piling on extra sides, roasted asparagus, truffle mashed potatoes, a salad with dressing on the side. Don't mess it up, he said, his smirk practically daring her to fail. A couple at a nearby table laughed, their heads turning to watch the show. Anna stood there, her notepad still in her apron, her pen untouched. Yes, sir, she said, her voice so quiet it barely reached them. She didn't write a thing. She just nodded and walked back to the kitchen. Years ago, Anna had stood in a different kind of room, a lecture hall in Berlin. Sunlight pouring through tall windows, her classmates scribbling notes as a professor lectured on global trade deficits. She'd been the star of her program, studying international economics, fluent in 4 languages, her mind sharp enough to unravel any problem. She'd loved the debates, the late-night study sessions, the way her professors would nod when she spoke. But then her mom got sick cancer, the kind that didn't give you a timeline. Anna didn't think twice. She left her degree, her apartment, her whole life in Germany, and flew back to the U.S. to be with her mom. She didn't tell anyone why she was leaving. Just packed a bag and got on a plane. Now, as she moved through the restaurant's kitchen, the clatter of pans and the shouts of chefs around her, that life felt like a dream. But it was still there in the way she carried herself, in the way her eyes caught every detail. When Anna came back with the dishes, the table went quiet. She set down the duck, the sea bass, the pasta, every plate perfect. Not a single mistake. Then she placed a small card next to Klaus's plate, handwritten in neat script, listing the ingredients. For each dish in English and German. I learned this recipe from the head chef in Hamburg, she said softly, her German flawless, her tone almost gentle. Back when you were a regular there? Klaus's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Hans's smirk vanished, his eyes flicking to the card like it was evidence in a trial. The couple at the next table leaned closer, the woman whispering, "Did she just say Hamburg?" Anna didn't wait for them to respond. She turned, her apron brushing the table, and walked. Away, her steps as steady as ever. A woman in a pearl necklace, her hair swept up in a perfect chignon, caught Anna's arm as she passed. She was a real estate mogul, known for buying up half of Manhattan and flipping it for millions. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping, with fake sweetness, "but your apron's got a stain. It's a bit unprofessional, don't you think?" The table around her tittered, their eyes scanning Anna's uniform like they were inspecting a flawed product. Anna glanced down at the faint spot on her apron, barely visible in the dim light. She smoothed it with one hand, her face calm. "Thank you for pointing that out," she said, her voice steady, her eyes meeting the woman's for a brief, unflinching moment. She turned away, but not before the woman muttered to her friend, "They really should train these girls better." The words hung in the air, sharp and deliberate, as Anna kept walking, her posture unchanged. Klaus sipped his wine, trying to shrug it off. "I doubt her salary here could buy a bottle of this," he said in German, loud enough for the nearby tables to catch it. Hans laughed too loud, like he was trying to pull the room back to their side. "People like her," Klaus went on, "they dream of sitting at these tables, but they'll never get there." Anna was back now, pouring more wine, her hands steady as the liquid filled the glasses. She didn't look at him, didn't react, just kept the bottle tilted, the red wine catching the light. Hans leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Jeez, never even tasted it." The room felt colder now, the jazz music fading under the weight of their words. A man in a navy suit at another table glanced up, his face tightening, like he wasn't sure whether to laugh or look away. To clear a dessert plate from a nearby table, a young tech entrepreneur, his tie askew and his laugh too loud, called out to her, "Hey, you ever get tired of this gig? Must be rough serving people like us all night?" His table mates chuckled, their eyes glinting with amusement. Anna paused, her hand resting on the plate, and turned to face him. "It's honest work," she said, her voice quiet but clear, her eyes holding his just long enough to make him shift in his seat. She picked up the plate and walked away, but the entrepreneur leaned back, muttering to his friends, She's got some nerve talking back, like that. The words carried, and a few heads turned, the room's attention sharpening like a blade. Anna set the bottle down, her movements slow, deliberate. Ass. Then she looked at Klaus, her eyes steady. "Mr. Adler," she said in German, her voice soft but clear. "2 years ago in Munich, you told the chef that this wine should breathe for exactly 12 minutes, no more." The room went still. Klaus's glass froze in his hand. "I was there that day," she added, her words gentle but sharp, like a knife you don't see coming. "I remember it well." The couple in the red dress stopped talking. The man in the navy suit put down his phone. Hans stared at his plate, his fingers twitching. Anna turned away, her steps calm, leaving a silence that felt like it could shatter the chandeliers. A server from the back, a young guy named Marco, who'd been at the restaurant for years, brushed past Anna in the kitchen and whispered, "You okay? That guy's a jerk." Anna gave him a small nod, her lips curving just enough to show she appreciated it. She didn't say anything, just adjusted her apron and headed back out. But as she passed the bar, she caught sight of a small, faded photo tucked into the edge of her apron. Pocket her and her mom. Eleanor laughing in Central Park, the sun bright behind them. Her fingers brushed the photo for a moment, her steps slowing, then she straightened and kept moving. The kitchen noise faded behind her, but that photo stayed with her, a quiet reminder of why she was here. Klaus wasn't used to being outplayed. He leaned forward, his voice tight, still in German. "Perhaps you were a server in Germany, and still are." He said it like it was a fact, like her life was stamped on her uniform. Hans jumped in, his tone biting. "Speaking well doesn't change status." The wealthy couple nearby exchanged a look, the woman's lips curling into something like pity. Anna stood there, her hands folded in front of her, her face calm. The room was watching now, every table tuned in, waiting to see what she'd do. Klaus leaned back, his smile thin, like he just landed a punch. The air was thick, the kind of tension that makes your chest tight. A woman in a sleek black dress, her diamond earrings catching the light, leaned over from a nearby table. She was a fashion influencer, her social media full of curated perfection. "Excuse me, dear," she said, her voice loud enough to draw eyes. "But that watch of yours, it's a bit outdated, isn't it? Doesn't really fit the vibe here." Her friends giggled, their phones already out, ready to capture the moment. Anna glanced at her silver watch, the one her father had given her before he passed, its face scratched but still ticking. "It keeps time," she said simply, her voice soft but steady. Her eyes meeting the woman's for a moment before she turned away. The influencer laughed, but it was forced, and her friend's smiles faltered as Anna walked off, her head high. Anna tilted her head just enough to catch Klaus's eye. "How interesting you say that," she said in German, her voice so soft it almost didn't carry. "Since I'm the second largest shareholder of Adler Holdings Bank," the words hit like a shockwave. Klaus sat up straight, his face stiffening. Anna reached into her apron, pulled out her phone, and swiped to an email. The screen showed the bank's logo, a string of digital signatures from the board. She held it out, not for long, just enough for Klaus to see. The couple in the red dress gasped, the woman pulling out her phone to record. Whispers spread like wildfire, tables turning to stare. Klaus's face went pale, his hand gripping the edge of the table. As Anna moved to another table, a man in a gray blazer, a venture capitalist with a reputation for ruthless deals, called her over. "You know," he said, his voice smooth but edged with condescension, "you'd probably do better in a place like this if you smiled more. Customers like a friendly face." His table nodded, their expressions a mix of amusement and agreement. Anna set down their water pitcher, her movements precise, and looked at him. "I smile when it's earned," she said, her voice calm, her eyes steady. The man blinked, his confidence wavering, and the table fell silent as Anna walked away, her steps unwavering, the room's eyes following her. Hans tried to laugh, but it came out like a choke.
Aus!
Forced a smile, his voice low. "If that's true, you wouldn't be working here." He said it like he was calling her bluff, like he could still turn this around. Hans nodded, leaning forward. "Yeah, Nobody with that kind of money waits tables. The room was buzzing now, people leaning in, their forks forgotten. Anna didn't move, didn't blink. She just looked at Klaus, her eyes steady, her voice calm. "I work here," she said, her German soft but clear, "because my mother loves this restaurant's dessert." She pointed to a table in the corner where an older woman sat, her gray hair pulled back, a warm smile on her face as she watched Anna. "She's sitting right there." The restaurant turned as one. Anna's mother, Eleanor, raised a hand. Her smile, soft but proud. A murmur ran through the crowd, some people nodding, others wiping their eyes. Klaus stared at the table, his jaw tight. Hans looked down, his hands folded in his lap. The woman in the red dress put her phone away. Her face flushed. The man in the navy suit stood up like he wanted to say something, then sat back down. Anna didn't wait for a response. She turned, her steps slow and steady, and walked back to the kitchen. The room stayed quiet, the jazz music the only sound, like it was holding its breath. Later that night, as Anna cleared a table near the bar, a young couple, their clothes expensive but their faces nervous, stopped her. The woman, clutching a designer purse, spoke quietly. "I saw what happened. I just wanted to say, you handled that with so much grace." Her partner nodded, his eyes earnest. Anna paused, her hands still on the plates, and gave them a small smile. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but warm. She didn't linger, just picked up the plates and moved on. But the couple watched her go, their faces bright with admiration. The room seemed to soften, the air lighter, as if Anna's presence was rewriting the night. Anna's mother had always been her anchor. Years ago, when Anna was a kid, they'd sit together in their family's sprawling library, Eleanor reading. Her stories about courage and kindness. Even then, with all their wealth, Eleanor had taught her to value people over things. When Eleanor got sick, Anna didn't hesitate to come home. She took this job at the restaurant because it was Eleanor's favorite place, the one spot where her mom could still smile, even on the bad days. Anna didn't need the money. She worked for the moments when she could bring her mom a slice of chocolate torte and see her eyes light up. As Anna moved through the kitchen now, the chef shouting orders around her, she glanced at a small photo tucked in her apron, a picture of her and Eleanor laughing in Central Park, years before the diagnosis. The next night, the restaurant was different. People whispered Anna's name as she moved through the tables, their eyes following her. The story had spread like wildfire. A grainy video from the couple's phone hit social media, racking up millions of views by morning. People shared it with captions like, "Never judge a book by its cover," and "This waitress owned him." Klaus's name was trending, and not in a good way. A finance blog posted an article. Adler Holdings board member humiliated by his own shareholder. By noon, Hans was out of a job, the news breaking on a business forum. The couple in the red dress stopped getting invites to their usual charity galas. Nobody wanted to be associated with them after the video. The man in the navy suit, a hedge fund manager named Richard, lost a major client who said he didn't like that kind of attitude. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was just the truth catching up. As Anna refilled water glasses at a quiet table, an older man, his suit wrinkled, but his eyes kind, spoke up. "You remind me of my daughter," he said, his voice low, almost lost in the hum of the restaurant. She'd never let anyone push her around either. Anna paused, her pitcher hovering over the glass, and gave him a small nod. "She sounds strong," she said, her voice gentle. The man smiled, his eyes misty, and Anna moved on, her steps steady. But her hand lingered on the pitcher for a moment, as if his words had settled somewhere deep. The room kept moving, but that small exchange hung in the air, a quiet connection. In the chaos, Anna didn't check her phone. She didn't read the posts or watch the videos. She was back at work, her uniform pressed, her hair tied back, moving through the tables like nothing had changed. But something had. The regulars started to nod at her, their smiles warmer. A woman in a gray blazer, a lawyer who came in every Tuesday, slipped Anna a note with her tip, "You're an inspiration." Anna tucked it into her apron, her face calm, and kept working. She didn't need their praise. She wasn't here for that. But the air in the restaurant felt lighter, like the room itself had learned something. A few nights later, a man walked in, tall, quiet, his suit understated but expensive, the kind that didn't need to shout. He asked for Anna's table, his voice low, and sat down without a fuss. The room shifted when he walked in. Conversations got quieter, heads turned, then looked away. Nobody needed to say his name. He was Anna's husband, Daniel Muller, a man whose name carried weight in boardrooms across the world. He didn't speak much, didn't need to. His presence was enough. Anna walked over, her steps steady, her smile small but warm. She set a glass of water in front of him, her hand brushing his for a moment. He looked up at her, his eyes soft, and nodded. That was it. No big speech, no grand gesture. Just a moment that said everything. The woman in the red dress was back that night, sitting with a new date, her laugh a little too loud. When she saw Daniel, her fork stopped halfway to her mouth, her face paling. Richard, the hedge fund guy, was at his usual table, but he kept his eyes on his plate, his fingers tight around his wine glass. Hans wasn't there. He'd been replaced by a new assistant, a young woman who kept her head down and didn't smirk. Klaus hadn't shown up since that night, and word was he was keeping a low profile. His board meetings now held over video calls. The restaurant felt different, like the power had shifted not because of money or status, but because of something deeper. Truth, maybe, or dignity. As Anna served a table near the window, a young girl, maybe 10, tugged at her mother's sleeve and pointed at Anna. "Mom, is that the lady from the video?" she whispered, her eyes wide. The mother, a quiet woman in a simple dress, smiled and nodded. "She's the one who stood up to that mean man," she said softly. Anna caught their words, her hand pausing on the tablecloth for a moment. Then she kept moving, her face calm, but her steps a little lighter. The girl watched her go, her face bright with awe, like she had just seen a hero. The room didn't notice, but that moment lingered, a spark of something pure in the middle of the night. Anna moved through the tables, her silver watch catching the light, her hands steady as she poured wine. Eleanor came in again that week, sitting at her usual table in the corner, her gray hair glowing under the chandeliers. Anna brought her a slice of chocolate torte, the restaurant's specialty, and sat with her for a minute, their hands touching. Across the table, the room watched, but this time it wasn't with pity or judgment. It was respect, the kind that doesn't need words. Anna didn't talk about what happened. She didn't need to. The story was out there, living its own life, teaching its own lessons. One evening, as Anna wiped down a table, the restaurant's manager, a gruff man named Tony, who rarely smiled, pulled her aside. "You know," he said, his voice low, "I've been here 20 years and I've never seen anyone handle a night like you did." He handed her a small envelope, a bonus from the staff's tip pool, something they'd never done before. Anna took it, her fingers brushing the paper, and gave him a nod. "Thank you, Tony," she said, her voice soft but steady. The envelope into her apron and went back to work. But Tony watched her go, his usual scowl replaced by something like pride. The consequences kept rolling in, quiet but steady. Hans tried to spin the story online, posting about overblown drama, but the comments tore him apart. Deleted his account by the end of the week. The woman in the red dress, whose name turned out to be Claire, lost a sponsorship deal with a luxury brand she'd been tagged in too many posts calling her out. Richard's client list kept shrinking, his name tied to the video in ways he couldn't shake. Klaus issued a statement through his PR team, something vague about respecting all professionals, but it didn't stop the memes or the articles. None of it was Anna's doing. She didn't post, didn't comment, didn't gloat. She just kept working, her life quiet but full. Anna's days started early. She'd wake up in her small apartment, make coffee, and sit with Eleanor, talking about the little things, how the park looked in the morning, what book they'd read next. Then she'd head to the restaurant, her uniform pressed, her watch ticking softly. She didn't need the job, not with her family's wealth or her shares in Adler Holdings. But she stayed because of Eleanor, because of the way her mom's face lit up when she tasted that torte. Anna didn't talk about her past, didn't mention her degree or her languages. She just moved through the world, her steps steady, her eyes sharp, letting her actions speak for her. One night, a new customer came in, a woman in her 60s with a worn coat and a kind face. She sat alone, her hands folded on the table, and ordered just a coffee. Anna brought it to her, setting it down gently, and noticed the woman's hands, trembling. "Long day?" Anna asked, her voice soft. The woman nodded, her eyes tired. "Long life," she said, and they both smiled. Anna slipped a small plate of cookies next to the coffee, no charge, and walked away. The woman left a crumpled $5 bill as a tip, more than she could afford, and a note that said, "Thank you for seeing me." Anna tucked it into her apron, next to the photo of her and Eleanor. The restaurant started to feel like a different place. The staff treated Anna differently now, with awe, but with quiet respect. The chefs would save her a plate of whatever they were testing in the kitchen. The other servers started asking her advice not about work, but about life, how to stay calm under pressure, how to keep going when things got hard. Anna didn't give long answers. She'd just nod, say something simple, and keep moving. But her words stuck with them, the way truth always does. Weeks later, Daniel came back to the restaurant, this time with a small gift-book wrapped in plain paper. Left on the table with a note in his neat handwriting. "For your mom." It was a collection of poetry, the kind Eleanor loved. Anna smiled when she saw it, her fingers tracing the cover. She didn't say anything, just tucked it into her bag and kept working. The room watched, but nobody whispered this time. They didn't need to. They knew who she was now, not because of her money or her name, but because of the way she carried herself, the way she made people feel seen. The story didn't end with a big moment. Didn't need to. And it kept working, kept bringing Eleanor. Her dessert kept moving through the world with that quiet strength. The people who judged her, who had laughed at her, they were the ones who paid the price, not because she fought them, but because the truth always catches up. You know that feeling, don't you? When someone looks at you and sees less than you are, when they dismiss you, mock you, try to make you small, but you keep going. You hold your ground. You don't need to shout or prove anything. You just are. And that's enough. It's always enough. Where are you watching from?
Leave.
A comment below and hit follow to walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and finally healing on Thread Tales.